Alright, hello and welcome to the 21st letter in the Copperplate Majuscules series. This is for the letter U. Not a very common letter, but also possibly one of the most challenging to do. Today I'm using a Nico G nib in an oblique holder with acrylic ink in. I have talked about acrylic ink before and its compatibility with different nibs. Long story short, needs something durable that isn't gonna be affected by damage very easily, so something that can be easily cleaned, maintained. You don't want to put it in a vintage nib. Okay, so normal deal that my X height is 5mm, so my majuscule height is 15mm. I use the ratio 2:1:2. Okay, so with a U, it's quite a deceptively simple letter. So I'm going to start with my contained oval. I'm going to go right the way over into an undertone. Okay, cool. So in a U, you've only got 2 strokes really. You can do it in more than 2 should you want to. Let me just clean this off, otherwise, like I said, I'm going to get damage to my nib, which I don't want. Even in Nico G, it's still got to protect it. You can't just throw these guys to the wayside. For me, they are my reliable staple. They are the pair of socks in the drawer that you know that fit great, but they're a bit worn through. It's those ones that you just keep putting back on. So Nico G's for me are really, really important. So if we go, oh, I haven't even thought about color or anything. Heck. What should we go for? I can do like some kind of yellow business. All right. So in a U, you obviously have a contained oval right here. And you have an underturn, which should contain the width of your O. This lead out should also contain the same amount of space, roughly, give or take. Ideally, what you're looking for are 2 completely parallel lines coming up from the bottom. Mine are almost there. I think I've just swung my second one a little bit wide. That's, I mean, it's easy enough to cover if you've got the rest of the word. You have 2 main strokes. You can start at the 12 o'clock. I've said this before on letters, but you can start at 12 o'clock. So if I put this up here somewhere, so we can start at the 12 o'clock and then go into an undertone and then go back over. I don't know if I quite like what I've done, but we'll go through that in a second. The gap I've explained before between a contained oval and your downstroke should also be about an O's width. So I'm about there. Mine's still a little bit wet, so I'm just hedging my bets because I don't want my yellow to be dyed black. You have 2 main strokes. And it should join back up at this point. So general rule of thumb also in minuscules is that your exit stroke, which leads to your entry stroke, should be, so if you've got like an I or an E that leads to another letter, a T or a C or whatever, you know, something that has an exit stroke, it should be joining the letter at the halfway point. So the first underturn So should join second stroke at the 1.5 sort of height. So I don't know how well it's coming up in video, but I'll just go over my lines right here so you can see that is my X height. This is my first descender right here, and I'm trying to get the first underturn to join at roughly halfway in between my header line and my first descender line. So it's joining at the 1.5 height right there. A U is very similar to an S in that a lot of the weight is on the left hand side. Maybe more similar to a B where you've got a very heavy left hand side. So we've obviously got a flourishable area here. You can also take this up. It does not have to have a square top, that's totally optional. I'd say if your other letters have a square top though, that it's a good idea to mirror that in your majuscules. But should you need to, you can extend it up and over. It doesn't have to be all the way to the top. You can put it lower down. I would keep at least the middle third along the slant line. So you should have, I got the handy dandy post-it note right here. Is everything dry? Roughly, yeah. It's harder to tell in acrylic because it has a sheen, but it is dry. So I should have two parallel lines here. So that line and that line covered at that point should be parallel for the middle third of my section. So the middle third of my lines right here. Okay, but the tops can be completely different. You can flourish here. I've got enough space? Yeah, I do. So we can flourish over here. One thing that I would avoid with a U is because you've got, it's such a simplistic letter, it's actually kind of hard to get totally right, because there's not a lot of places to hide. You don't have any crossbars, you don't have anywhere where you can you know, alter the shape and still keep the legibility because it's so simple. The legibility box is obviously this bottom part, which means that you cannot feasibly change the height of either of these. So I couldn't drop this lower. So I couldn't drop this this underturn lower unless I was doing something like a modern script, but in Copperplate that is not possible. If I just put a little bullet point right here because I haven't got any space to make a note. So both underturns must must reach the same depth. So if I have dropped that one lower, then the other one also needs to be one lower. They've got to be the same. You should be able to see a parallel line right here. If it's not, I mean, mine's ever so slightly off, but I think you could get away with it. If it's radically not, you would be able to tell quite easily by, again, getting a little post-it note out and having a look right here. So you can see mine's almost there. I've just swung a tiny bit wide here, no more than by 1 millimeter or so. But you should be able to see if you cover that up. Okay. Your two lines obviously should be on the slant line. I've said that before, so that they are completely parallel. But obviously in an underturn, that's just your middle third. So don't try and get that from the start here. Otherwise you're gonna paint yourself into a corner basically when you're doing your first stroke right here. if you're trying to reach this point to then do your line down for your universal line of beauty, or if you're even saying, you know, you're going by the Eleanor Winters ratio, where she has the entire half of her height be along the slant line, you're cutting a very, very fine rug there, because it means that I knew I had this whole third to play with before I had to go along the slant line. So I could see visually where I had to be like, okay, now I need to stop and go straight. But if you've got a half, that means that you're somewhere in the middle of these two boxes, and it's not a lot of space or not a lot of height to be able to play with you. So I'd just be wary of that. I think it'll just take a little more practice to get, especially if you're going to do this backwards. The backwards thing is hard, but it's totally doable with practice. And like I said, you can start at the 12 o'clock, which might be a little bit easier, particularly if you've got that longer straight section in your universal line of beauty. So if you are doing the whole half, no problem. Alrighty. U's, there are not a lot of capital U's ever. I really don't think I've done many. I've done commissions in different languages where it has thrown up capital U's before, but it's fairly easy because the last stroke that you've got is just a straight line. It means that your ascenders are not going to be interrupted. So if you've got an L or whatever, then you can do a looped L without a problem. Again, if you've got a descender like a Y or whatever, then you've got the space underneath to play with because you cannot drop these lower. You can flourish over here and potentially drop that lower and whatever you want. But again, that is totally for afterwards. Keep your legibility first, and then flourish afterwards once you know what space you've got to play with. I think that's about it for a U. I don't think me showing you different words and stuff is gonna show any new rules, purely because the end of it is so clean and simple. It's one of those where I think you've got to really nail the basics, so the basic strokes, in order to get this letter right. So you need consistent pressure on your downstroke. You need a good gradual increase of pressure and release of pressure. And also the backwards thing is going to take a little bit of practice, but I think that's about it. Have a good Sunday, and any issues, just let me know in comments. I'm more than happy to help. Bye.